in those tween years, they start to find out that sometimes some of the things that they prayed for, they might have thought prayer is just asking for God and God giving you stuff. And when they find out that some of the things that they may have prayed for, or that people they know have prayed for, doesn't seem to happen, or when they really see that there are really bad things happening in the world, and why is God allowing that to happen? So these questions come up very early. They came up very early, especially in my own family, because of some very serious and extremely difficult things that we went through. And so the questioning, well, what do I do with prayer? And why should I pray? And so if we look at prayer as not simply just asking God for stuff and God giving us stuff, but prayer is that conversation with God. Prayer is developing a relationship. Prayer is communicating with God. And it includes listening as well as speaking. It includes everything that a relationship does. Relationships change us, and relationships are about interacting and developing trust in another person. So if we can start developing that concept in the child early on, to pray and to ask, and if things don't happen the way you think they should, to pray and ask more, and to dig in even deeper. And so I think that's, just recognizing that there are things that we don't have answers for, but behind that is also knowing that there is a very big God. God has a whole universe that he's managing, and he sees so much more than we see. And so there's also that point of teaching the child, when you don't get things that you understand, trusting that God understands, he is listening, he is there, and to try to develop that long view. And so we can start that early in the child.
Well, and as we close, I want to deal with this issue of faith and science. We recognize that there are people in our world today that we're going to interact with that do not possess a biblical worldview. And as one of you had mentioned earlier in the conversation, there was a moment in one of your children's lives where they were confronted with something that really was different than what they had been taught regarding origins. And so you're talking about scientific matters here. Janelle, how is it that the two of you really deal with these issues relative to faith and science in this book, Honest Answers?
Well, now even more so for our kids, they can see, what can we get from science? I mean, everybody is staring at the news. How are we doing with this pandemic? And what are we going to do not only for the hospital workers, but for, what antibodies do we need, et cetera, et cetera. So there's such a powerful relationship with our faith and how we envision God interacting with his people and their material well-being, their physical well-being. It doesn't mean we put our trust in science as if science is the creator, but that we can, engage with what innovations and people using their minds for our own, physical well-being. That's a wonderful thing that the Lord has given us. So really approaching it like that, marrying the material truths of God, science, and marrying the written truths of God, scripture, early on is great for kids.